Be warned, this is your warning that this video may change your entire view of the paranormal world. I know that's a big claim, but hear me out. Can buildings really record the memories of past trauma? Does the stone tape theory really explain the eerie possibility of residual hauntings? Come and sit with me as we get into the stone tape theory, where it came from, as well as some unexplained ghostly goings on that some believe is proof of the theory in action. Hello, my friend. How is your day going today? Are you doing good? Are you staying hydrated? If you're new around here, hello, welcome. My name is Claire and I am a lover of all things morbid, mysterious, and macabre. I've spent hours and hours absolutely enthralled in ghost hunting TV shows, but you know what I love more than the night vision footage and the EVPs? I want to know the history behind a paranormal encounter, the origins of urban legends, and the real, raw, personal ghost stories that people have experienced firsthand. I just love it. I love that shit. So that's what we're going to do. Every week, we're going to sit down and swap ghost stories like a good old sleepover. So if that's your scene, I would highly recommend you subscribe so that you never miss one of these chats. And we're doing a bit more of an educational one today, but I'm not just going to sit here and lecture at you. Like, there's going to be some spooky goings on involved too, don't worry. But I mean, let's be honest, if you're anything like me, you'll love learning about different theories that actually try to explain ghostly experiences too, because we're not just out here calling like gusts of wind or clanging pipes like proof of the paranormal, are we? No, we're better than that. Yes, we are. Today, we're going to cover the stone tape theory. And the main sources that I used came from actually a widely known skeptic in the paranormal field, the scientist and geologist Sharon A. Hill. And she changed my entire view on this phenomenon. Like, I don't know everything, I don't claim to know everything, and I'm always open to hearing like the other side of the story. And she raised some absolutely brilliant points that really got me thinking. The BBC film The Stone Tape, written by Nigel Neal, was also pretty enlightening. So come on, sit by me, take a seat, and we will get into it. So I went into the research for this video thinking that I was going to put together this like informative video and I was going to explain how the stone tape theory works, and that was going to be it. It was going to be like a really nice little starter. Like, we're on episode 6 now. It's a nice little introduction into what I thought was a widely accepted phenomenon in like the paranormal space. What you are about to hear is not the direction that I thought this video would go in. Like, I'm a believer in the paranormal, and having not really researched into the stone tape theory in any detail before, really, like, I had just accepted it for what we had been told for years on shows like Most Haunted and like things like that. But it turns out that it's not that solid of an explanation, like, at all. But we're going to get into it all, where it came from, what people claim it is, and what evidence there is to actually support it. So first of all, let's clear up what a residual haunting is, as this is the type of paranormal activity that the stone tape theory like attempts to explain. So residual hauntings are when the paranormal activity isn't an actual intelligent spiritual entity that can communicate with you, like for example like the Enfield poltergeist that we covered yesterday, which would respond with intelligent answers to like investigators' questions. And also like a shameless little plug here, like if you haven't watched that video yet, I obviously highly suggest that you do, as we went in on the details. It's a very good little watch, if I say so myself. And a residual haunting is more like an echo, like a recording of a past event that continues to replay. So in a residual haunting, your presence makes zero difference to the actual haunting itself. Like, the echoes are not aware of your presence. You're literally just like this passive witness to the event that's playing. One of the more common stories of residual hauntings that I personally hear about, and seem to be quite common in the UK, are stories of Roman soldiers marching through buildings or like in cellars. And a story that I remember vividly was told to me by my dad, and it's the story of the Roman ghosts of York. The story goes that in 1953, an 18-year-old heating apprentice named Harry Martindale was working in the cellar of the treasurer's house, repairing a boiler. And he was down there alone when all of a sudden he heard like this tinny trumpet sound, and thinking it was just like the road above him. Like, the treasurer's house is near to York Minster, like right in the heart of the city, like a busy city. He just carried on, like thinking, oh, it was just something out on the street. But then he heard it again. And just when he thought it couldn't get any weirder, what he can only describe as a legion of Roman soldiers, complete with a horse and rider, materialized through the wall of the cellar and walked from one side of the cellar to the other before disappearing into the opposite wall. They were like disheveled, they were dirty, they needed a shave, and they had green uniforms and round shields instead of like the usual red uniform going on with the square shields that like Roman soldiers are sort of like known for, I guess. They seemed completely unaware of Harry's presence in the cellar as they just like marched through the space, and he couldn't do anything but just like stand rooted to the spot and just like watch them in what I can only think is absolute bewilderment at what he was seeing right in front of him. The weirdest part though was that they were cut off at the knees. You know, like when you're playing like a video game and you're like glitching out on the wall or something, like you're really going all Skyrim on it. Like their feet were under the floor of the cellar. So once they'd passed through and Harry had composed himself, he naturally got the hell out of there. And when he spoke to someone in the building about the experience that he just had, they confirmed what he had just seen, saying that, yeah, Roman soldiers have been spotted in the cellar before. Turns out, around that time, they discovered that there was a Roman road that runs under the cellar of the treasurer's house, about 2 feet under where the floor is right now. Or, think about it, about the depth that would come up to their knees, explaining why the soldiers looked like they were marching through the foundations of the cellar. So like that residual haunting, those soldiers were just walking on the road, like regardless of what was above them. That's pretty cool, right? At the time, Harry's account of this experience was just completely dismissed because his description of these like Roman soldiers, they didn't match what historians knew at the time about the soldiers that would have been stationed in York. It's funny though, like as time went on though, there was some excavations at Hadrian's Wall which revealed that there were auxiliary troops that actually carried round shields, confirming that Harry could possibly have been right about what he saw. And that makes this account even more compelling because in 1953, when Harry's encounter occurred, it wasn't even known that auxiliary Roman soldiers had ever been stationed at York. So it wasn't like he'd just imagined them and his brain had just conjured up the accepted images of like standard issue Roman soldiers. It was a brilliant case of residual haunting, like the echoes of Roman soldiers walking on the Roman road with no awareness of all the buildings and the development that had since taken place and like gone over their heads since that moment in time. So where does the stone tape theory actually fit into all of this? In a nutshell, the stone tape theory suggests that the energy involved in an event can be projected and stored in materials like rocks or stones and then replayed under specific conditions. And it's a pretty neat and tidy explanation of why certain places seem to be more affected by residual hauntings than others. Like, I mean, think about it. If someone is brutally murdered in a room, the amount of energy that will be used and transferred, like the struggle, the death, the fear, the panic, it's a whole lot of energy in that room then. And so then if those massive amounts of emotion and energy are transmitted and then stored in the walls, like that could almost explain why that room is continuing to experience replays of that murder many years into the future. And the fundamentals of the stone tape theory have been talked about in literature for hundreds of years. In 1838, Charles Babbage was a mathematician and mechanical engineer who was known as the father of the modern computer. He actually wrote his theory in the 9th Bridgewater Treatise that our voices and actions leave permanent but imperceptible imprints on the world around us, being made possible by the transfer of motion between particles. Oh my god, that was so hard. Even the Society for Psychical Research had their own theory along the same lines. They subscribed to the concept of something called place memory, which explained that certain buildings or materials were capable of storing records about past events which could later be accessed and played back by sensitive individuals. And that's why some spirits were connected with specific places, like the place memory. In 1940, the then SPR president H.H. Price built on that place memory and speculated that the presence of the psychic ether, which was a medium between the spiritual and physical reality. And this intermediate ether enabled objects to carry traces of emotions and experiences from history. Although he did go on to say that these traces should be able to be identified by scientific methods, and as they haven't yet been proved, like this whole hypothesis is completely unproven. But, there's always a but, this didn't stop the archaeologist turned parapsychologist T.C. Lethbridge from taking this theory and just basically running with it. He wrote a book in 1961 called Ghost and Ghoul, which claimed that experiences and emotions could be stored in objects with the help of energy fields, which were strongest around things like streams, forests, and mountains. His evidence for this? In 1959, near Hull Mill in Branscombe, South Devon, he witnessed the apparition of a woman in Victorian clothing, and she was near a stream. So some speculate that it was T.C. Lethbridge's book that inspired the televised BBC play The Stone Tape, which aired on Christmas Day in 1972 and just skyrocketed the whole concept's popularity. And it was actually this play, this fictional television program, that first created the phrase stone tape theory. Since then, pretty much every ghost hunting TV show has kept that stone tape theory alive, with so many using it as this fallback explanation for residual hauntings. But the thing is, it's not even a theory, technically. In science, a theory is a well-tested model of the way that something in nature works. So inherently, the name is wrong. We can't test the model of the stone tape, just like so many other bits and pieces in the paranormal world. So it scientifically is not a theory. But it sounds good though, doesn't it? It sounds sciencey. Oh, stone tape theory. But because it can't be tracked, tested, or modeled, different people have attempted to explain the way that the stone tape theory may work in different ways. And while there are so many concepts involving everything from invisible fields to molecules in the stone to energy from dead organisms that make up the limestone to electromagnetism, right through to quantum entanglement, which for us mere mortals that got a D in their physics AS level before dropping it, quantum entanglement means that two particles can link together no matter how far apart they are. A bit like a long distance relationship is the best way that I can describe it. And the most popular belief for the stone tape theory is one that came much later, even after the 1972 film, and that takes the stone tape part of the name literally. And the basis is that thanks to the magnetic components of rocks, that makes them similar to a videotape, which is also magnetic. And this is the reason that some rocks can record past events. And so while it is a lovely idea that so conveniently explains why some places experience these residual playbacks from another point in time, it's just unproven pseudoscience. Even this concept falls apart when paranormal investigators start claiming that other materials like wood, dirt, and even running water can act like a videotape for events from history. And even then, it just raises so many questions why is it usually just one event that's recorded? Why does that same recording replay over centuries and doesn't get overwritten? Why are events only recorded in certain places? I'm trying to keep an open mind here as well, because that's not to say that there isn't some truth in this speculation, because that is all it is. It's just speculation. And I mean, who knows? Maybe some rocks do store emotions and energy. Maybe that's why some rooms feel creepy and some feel warm and inviting. But that is literally as strong as the argument can be. It's just a guess. It's just speculation. Because most things to do with the paranormal, there is no way that our current technology and our understanding can scientifically test under control conditions. And that is why there will always be just as many skeptics as there are believers about the stone tape theory and about the wider paranormal field itself. And this is the problem. Like, as humans, we want to rationalize. We want to have an explanation. Not knowing, that's scary. Like, that doesn't sit well with us. Evolutionarily, is evolutionarily a word? It is now. Our ancestors, if they didn't know what was in the dark, that could kill them. So that's sort of like, you kind of see where I'm going with this. Like, if they don't know, the not knowing could kill them. And that's scary. We're hardwired not to like that. We want the explanation. And so that's why I think that the stone tape theory was just so unquestioningly accepted as this legitimate scientific explanation for spooky-ooky things. It seems to conveniently fill the gap in knowledge between the how and why of some of these hauntings so that people could just sleep a little easier at night. And in reality, the stone tape theory is nothing more than a really good spooky film from the 70s. But what do you think? Is the stone tape theory a legitimate explanation, or is it a bit too much of a reach for you? Let me know your thoughts down below, because I absolutely love reading other people's ghostly thoughts and opinions, especially on things like this. I think there's so many different angles of these sorts of things that it's always really interesting to hear other people's perspectives. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, I had zero idea that the term stone tape theory came from a fictional BBC film. I had grown up obsessed with the paranormal. I'd watched and read all about these so-called paranormal experts talking very matter-of-factly about these things. So you just accepted it for what it was. The research for this video really did open my eyes just to how much skepticism surrounds this theory, and it's definitely helped me to question the information. If I see someone relying heavily on it as a bona fide explanation, it kind of makes you think well, what evidence do you have on the stone tape theory that I don't know about, sort of thing. But like most things in the paranormal world, I'll just keep an open mind, as just because we can't prove it scientifically yet doesn't mean there isn't a scrap of truth to the whole belief. Maybe we just don't know yet. But let me know, please do let me know. If I opened your eyes to the truth behind the stone tape theory, or even if you just learned something new, I would be forever grateful if you would hit that like button. And I would love to see you back here for another story sometime. So maybe, I don't know, would you like to subscribe? Maybe? But that is all from me today. I cannot wait to chat with you more tomorrow, where we will be getting back down and dirty into a particularly haunted place. So until next time, sleep safe. We're recording. Leon.